peachydragon.com. Happy creative stuff.
There are 3 versions of this video, one with the lesson and the song, one with just the lesson and one with just the song. Links to all 3 are in the description below. So this is going to be a lesson and a harmonic analysis. Now you might say, why harmonic analysis? It's just interesting. It's good to know how things work, especially if you're interested in songwriting, how you want to break it apart. Especially for guitarists, when you see chords like this, that doesn't really make sense to most guitar players. Most of them know your normal chords and maybe some smaller versions, breakdowns of certain chords that make sense in isolation. But as soon as you spread the notes out, most guitar players don't know what you're actually doing. So if the harmonic analysis part of this makes no sense to you, don't worry about it. Just skip over those parts, just listen through them, and then you can learn from the rest of it. And you'll see the PDF for the tab and the MIDI file are in the description below, so you can get those and check them out yourself. So I'm not going to go through it finger by finger in detail, but I am going to explain the theory behind it to you. So the picking technique for this song won't involve a pick, unless you have some kind of advanced finger picking system going on. Generally you need three or four fingers to do it. There are some strums, but very, very few. Usually it's 3 fingers, 1 thumb first and middle, like that. And in some cases you'll need 4 fingers, so you'll add the ring finger. Very much in the classical style of things, classical style of picking for this song. Now the way to make this sound like music and make it sound expressive is the song has to flow. You can't just play. That's a bit too staccato for the song. You need to connect it and make it flow. So one of the tricks to make the song sound good is to always keep one of the fingers on the fretboard so it sustains into the next chord. For instance, so I'm always keeping one of the fingers down, and you'll see I've got all 26 chords used for this. All the shapes are in the tab. I'm looking at it on the screen there in case you're wondering why I'm glancing over. So you'll always keep one finger down to keep it flowing, so it's more legato. And you'll see a lot of times if you look at different versions of this, there are little implied notes and things that are sometimes played and sometimes aren't played, and sometimes it might be from the bass part. So the guitarist sometimes plays, and sometimes he does it, sometimes he doesn't do it. In my version I left it in, I left it like that. One of the things I play differently in my version is the bass movement, because when I learned this song 19 years ago, the bass motion in the tab that I got was mimicking the bass player, because I was playing it as a soloist, so I didn't care about the differences between the two. So the bass motion on mine, that's what the bass player plays. On the guitar part, there's actually an interaction between the two that I didn't notice until recently. The guitarist plays, or something like that, which gives you a very different kind of sound. It's a slight tension and dissonance there that's nice to resolve. So let's get into the harmonic analysis part of this. The song is an F sharp minor. So some people might say that's 1 minor. I'm doing all my harmonic analysis from the major point of view because that's how I learned my theory. So I'm seeing it as a 6 minor. Generally, if you don't know what it is, don't worry, but you can either see it as 1 major or 6 minor. Those are generally your 2 tonic points for any song. Most pop songs anyway, unless you're doing something advanced. So the song has an A-B kind of structure. It has one part that repeats a lot, goes to a B section with the key change and comes back. Most of it repeats, chorus and verse are the same sequence. You're going to have a 4-bar section that repeats at first. So looking at that, you've got your root, as I said, F sharp minor. Then you're going into your 3 minor chord, but it's inverted to be over the 3rd. So that's a C sharp minor over E. Now the reason it's done that way is so that it flows smoothly from the one chord to the other. Instead of going C sharp minor, would normally be which is okay, but it's more interesting to have it that way. And then your next chord in my version is basically a B power chord but it implies a 2 minor chord, because if you had to flesh this out, it would be a minor chord. Okay, so you stay on the B minor or the B5 chord, then you go to a C sharp major chord, 2 in 1 bar. So that C sharp major, normally in this key that would be a minor chord, but in this case it's a dominant approach back to the bass chord, back to your F sharp minor. And that's a fairly common addition in most songs, especially jazz, which Sting is very influenced by. So that moves from there back to there, as opposed to a minor chord, which would sound like that. When you look at the tab, you might say, why are there little loops in the middle of the bar sometimes? Why doesn't it just go from 11 to 10? Why does it have 11 and a little loop? Well, that's because it's indicating the rhythm, and there's a rule of notation that you shouldn't cross the middle part of the bar with a quarter note or a dotted quarter. You need to link those to make it easier to read. So that's a thing that comes from traditional theory, which most guitarists really don't know a lot about. I mean, even I don't sight read. I can read music, I can interpret it. I can't sight read on the spot, but people who do will tell you that things need to be done the right way for them to interpret it on the fly. So now you're going to repeat the same 4 chord section, but there's one addition. Even though the resolution was going to go to F sharp minor, there's one change here. There's one note moved, which actually changes the whole chord. So in this case, it just adds a bit of flavor, but what it actually is now is it's a D major over F sharp. Harmonically speaking, that would be the 4 chord, the 4 major, over its third. The rest is the same again. C sharp minor over E, B5, back to the C sharp major. And here we go to a different section. Sounds a bit different. Here we go to the 4-6 chord, so that's a major chord with an added 6. 2 bars, and then we have this hammer-on chord here. Now you'll see the fingering is odd because in the diagram you only see one part of the chord, but we need to do this little hammer-on there. So this chord is an A sus2, but it hammers on from the root to the 2. So you might almost call this an add 9 chord, because normally a sus would be if you had your third going to the 2 and back. Minor. That would normally be a sus. This is hammering from the root to the 9 and back. So you could sort of say it's a power chord add 9, but that's just getting way too technical. We don't need to think about that. And the harmonic roll of the A sus chord here is that's the root major. So if we said that our 6 F sharp minor is the tonic chord that we're using, then this would be the major tonic relative to that. And then we go back to our 5-7 of 6, or 5 of 6 in this case, it doesn't have a 7. We go back to that, but instead of going back to the F sharp like it did previously, well, technically previously it went to the D over F sharp, but it sounds very similar. And this time also it's going back to a D, so it's sort of a linear resolution. And then it has a little melodic line on that. So make sure you get the fingering to play that. And then it goes to this G sharp minor 11, also with a little melody on it, and then back to your F sharp bar chord. So let me just talk about those chords quick. I explained the C sharp. When we go to the D, that'll be the 4 major chord again. In this case it is the 4 major. Previously it was the 4-6. Now when you play the G sharp minor 11, harmonically that's a strange chord, because it's implying G sharp minor 7 flat 5. Which you won't really get in pop. It's very common in jazz, but I think when you substitute the flat 5 for the 11, no one can really tell, and normally that would be a very common approach chord. In jazz you get a 2-5-1, something like that, but in this case you don't have the 5, you've got the 2, which they've changed to the 11, so you've got this minor 7 flat 5 that they've changed into a minor 11, just to keep things civil, but there's a melody note which would imply the flat 13 on this dominant chord if it was there. It's that note, and then the result back to the minor. Okay, so that's back to the, no, that got technical. Now we're back to the root tonic minor chord. Sometimes it's just a strum, and sometimes in my version and the original, it has some rhythm to it. Okay, that's the bulk of the song. You can play that over and over. That gives you the chorus and the verse parts and the intro and the outro. So let's look at the key change over which the solo also happens. Okay, so when you're going into the key change, it has the same two lines, but instead of playing, you're just staying on it, and you just play that chord. Oh, if there was any audio clipping up till now, I do apologize, I adjusted it, but I don't think we need to re-record the audio up to this point for that. So, on the key change, like I said, you're going to play the same two chords, but instead of the second chord with the melody, you're just going to stay on the chord. And that's going to lead into your new key now. So the role of this G minor 11 here, it's technically a deceptive resolution. You'd expect that to go back the way it previously did. But in a way, the new key is C sharp minor. So it still has a dominant relation to that, which is very common in a lot of resolutions. It's not a dominant chord, so it doesn't have that going for it, but still it helps it transition in that way. So you'll see on the key change, I actually play it like the original guitar part, so suddenly there's a bit more tension as well. You're starting off with your C sharp minor. The harmonic structure for the first 8 bars is pretty much the same thing except in the new key. So you've got your C sharp minor as 6 minor. Okay. Moving down to your G sharp minor over B, exactly the same harmonic relationship as last time, that's your 3 minor over the 3rd. And then you just slide that down for your 2 minor over the 3rd. Okay, now we go to a dominant approach. So this is the same as last time, it's the dominant approach back to your 6 minor, but it's a sus4. So you've got your G sharp 7 sus4, and then it resolves to your normal G sharp 7. And now once again, it sounds like it's going to go back to C sharp minor, but instead, actually played here, same thing. Instead this time, your stretch is lessened because now once again they're doing an inversion of the 4 chord over its 3rd. Let me just tell you what it is again. They're changing that to an A over C sharp. Going into the same 3 chords we had previously. Again, the G sharp 7 sus. Now, same as previously in the song, just in the new key, we've got the A6, and this is exactly like the D6 we had. Moving on, let me just scroll down. Going to the E major, and I think this is the easiest chord in the whole song. Going up to your G sharp major. And now here it gets slightly interesting. I think this deviates from the harmonic structure. Because once again, your A6 to your E to your G sharp is giving you the same harmonic structure you had previously. You've got your 4-6, going to your 1 major, going to your dominant approach of your minor chord. So that went into your dominant approach, which would normally go back to your C sharp minor. But in this case, it's going to an A major. So your A chord is your 4 major, and this is where it gets slightly tricky. It's going back to your dominant approach to your minor chord, but it becomes a sus4, and that's in order to keep the same note on top. And then it does resolve as expected to your C sharp minor, going to C sharp minor 7, only one figure you need to pick up, going back to the A, same roll. So once again, you've got your G sharp sus4, which is implying a dominant resolution back to your root minor. But now the key is changing back to what it was, to an A sus2. Now that A sus2 would be the 4 chord in the current key, but when you go back to the original key, that's just your 1 chord. So it's a pivot chord, and it allows you to transition back to the old key without too much problem. So from there, you're pretty much done. You go back to the original progression that we've already covered. The only difference is right at the end. So to end the song, instead of playing the progression like we did last time to change keys, you're going to play it as normal. F sharp minor, but then transition to F sharp minor 7. And then repeat that again. Same thing, and then for the last time, and then we just go back to the beginning of the song and you play it slower. So you play those first 8 bars and then you resolve it to a normal F sharp minor bar chord. So what I did is I used pinch harmonics to end it, and then I played the octave. If you want to know more about how that works, drop me a message. I've been threatening to do some kind of guitar course, music theory course, book, or a video or an online video course for ages. So if you nag me about it enough, I'll put some more of the stuff into practice, and I can explain things like what is harmonic analysis and what's good about it and how you can incorporate it into your playing for real. So these inversion chords, I've only really seen used by Sting, and I've seen it used in a lesson by Brian May about some of the ballads that he played for Queen, but I've never really gotten a solid handle on using them myself. It's one of those things you have to train. I mean, being jazz trained, they train you on your inversions of your 4-note chords a lot, but when it comes to triads, generally guitarists know their little breakdowns like that. They don't know how to play them in interesting new ways like a piano player might. So that's something to look at and to explore in future in your own arrangements as well. So I hope that was helpful to you. Please take the tab below, enjoy it, learn the song. Please give the video a thumbs up below, give it a like, leave a comment, tell me what you liked about this and maybe what you didn't like, what else you would like me to cover, and subscribe to the channel.
peachydragon.com. Happy creative stuff.